Hello there and welcome. As always, this is Mikhail or Michael speaking, and before the video starts, I want to say thank you all who decided to support me financially, be it through Patreon, PayPal or Super Thanks. I really appreciate your help and generosity, so thank you friends and have a blessed day. Now, today's video I will start with the general Avdeevka frontline, where recent territorial developments require our most attention. As you know here, throughout the last few days, Russians were actively storming the village of Voshod and Yevgenika right after capturing the village of Sokol. In support of these assaults, Russians also assaulted Makiyivka Persha and all around the village of Umansky, in the obvious attempt to overwhelm Ukrainian formations in at least one or more sectors of the front line and eventually commit a breakthrough. And this is exactly what Russian forces were able to achieve. As a result of successful, yet careful and cautious advance, Russian forces were able to greatly solidify their positions around the village of Voshod, and as a result secured those territories. With those territories now in Russian control, you can already see a tragedy folding out for the Ukrainian troops. With this territorial gain, Russians established direct fire control over this road, which supports and supplies Ukrainian formations within Makiyivka Persha. And with this road now effectively unusable, Ukrainians will only have few roads. For example, this one that goes through Mezhove right towards the village of Makiyivka Persha. And although at the time of recording this road is not physically cut, however, Ukrainian movement through it, in and out of the village, is greatly compromised. Supply issue, however, isn't the only problem, because if I zoom out to look at a bigger picture, we can see a very big ledge, a bridgehead, or even a bulge developing, with Persha Novosilka right in the middle of it. With all this information in mind, I don't think it shouldn't be a surprise that Russians are trying to bypass fortifications in front and within Makiyivka Persha, and instead are trying to go around in order to force Ukrainians to retreat. With the fall of Makiyivka Persha, surely this entire portion of the front line up to the Yasna-Bradivka and this lake will surely come under Russian control after some time, as it usually happens. In any way, at this point in time, not only do I want to know your opinion on this whole situation around Makiyivka Persha, what is your opinion on this situation? Do you think whether Ukrainians will reinforce this front line and will fight for every inch of the territory, or perhaps fall back before the pincer maneuver can even happen, avoiding encirclement and buying themselves some time to construct some fortifications before Russians enter and storm them as well? And while you're there expressing your valued opinion, please do consider supporting this video by a like, comment, and of course, if you haven't subscribed, a subscription. Words cannot describe how important those actions are for the promotion of this video to a wider audience, so if you want more people to see my video, please do obliterate that like button. Thank you in advance for your considerations, and let's move on with the video. Not going far away from the town of Avdiivka, let's visit the town of Toretsk and discuss the situation here as well. Here Russian forces continue to storm the streets and houses of Pivnichne and Druzhba, attacking from the Mayorsk and Shumy villages, as well as through this recent opening which Russians were able to acquire due to their surprise attack. And overall, despite continuous Ukrainian attempts at reinforcing and stopping Russians at their tracks, Russians advanced here yet again. First and very minor advance happened here in this small residential area, for which Russians are fighting in attempt to capture it completely. As you can see, it has the name of Druzhba, which from Russian translates to friendship, symbolic I guess, but the fall of Druzhba is absolutely crucial if Russians want to continue to advance towards Pivnichne and eventually the bigger city of Toretsk. But as of right now, Toretsk of course is Ukrainian rear, and the most fighting is happening within Pivnichne, Druzhba and Zalisne. It is here in Zalisne where Russians advanced as well. Here Russians are trying to take the most out of their bridgehead which they were able to establish within the village, attacking all across the front, and as a result added more territories to their overall control within the city. This portion of the city fell to the Russians within the last 24 hours, as well as this very small portion of it as well. If we zoom in, we can see that Russians managed to penetrate Ukrainian defenses pretty deep, but now they are in risk of Ukrainian flank attacks. Especially that Ukrainians continue to control this high-rise buildings residential area. So at least to me it seems, this territorial gain might still be challenged by Ukrainians, as it would be prone to Ukrainian counterattacks. Now let's quickly discuss the situation within New York, after mostly capturing this portion of the town, as well as Yurivka. Here, Russians continued attacking towards the center of the village. However, it proved problematic due to continuous Ukrainian counterattacks. And so far, no territorial changes in favor of any country is recorded on this portion of the front. Russians, in attempt to help their advancing formations within New York, heavily shell the city itself, as you can see here on the video. Here, Russians are trying to destroy several Ukrainian defensive lines and strongholds prior to storming New York city center. Generally speaking, the Toretsk direction had become extremely hot within the last few weeks due to continuous and unstoppable Russian advance here in this area. In my previous video, I mentioned that this is probably an attempt of a pincer in intent to join forces somewhere around Konstantinivka, thus virtually encircling the entire Ukrainian army groupings here in this area. However, yet another pincer is presenting itself as you look on the map. As Russians continue to advance in Zalichne, slowly but surely they creep towards New York from northeast. So perhaps that is definitely a possibility, because Russians will gain ability to advance along the road, thus physically cutting it, or in case if they won't be able to take control over this clearing, they would at least establish a fire control over it, and thus crippling Ukrainian logistic and rotation systems. Now, of course, there's still road that leads to New York, which is fairly safe for Ukrainians to use. However, with recent Russian advances in Avdiivka, this route too can become compromised. And with it, the city of New York and its defenders will find themselves in a operational encirclement. Then from here, let's move all the way to the north and quickly discuss a situation that is currently developing around Ukrainian-controlled village of Makiyivka. All throughout last few days, Russian forces were continuously advancing towards this village, and as a result of those successful offensive efforts, were able to advance and inch closer to Makiyivka village, with this amount of territory coming in under Russian control. Now, if we zoom in a little, we can see that Russians are about one tree line away from the village. However, here is where they got the closest to the village itself. As you can see, very little stands in between Russians and Makiyivka village. Then at very last, let's visit Kupyansk frontline and its very southern flank, where Russians advanced west of Krokhmalne and southwest of Berestove in the direction of Ukrainian-controlled village of Pishani, with this big chunk of territory coming in under Russian control. Not only did Russia manage to capture this rather big stretch of territory, most importantly, they were able to storm, enter and entrench within the first street and first houses of Pishani village. Now, of course, as you can see, this portion of the town is fairly isolated from the rest of the village, not only by a wide gap, but also by Pishcha River, which runs right in the middle of the village. So those Russian territorial gains are only a sign to come, as Russians will surely use this as a bridgehead in attempt to capture the village in its entirety. Now with this, I gladly end the video. Hopefully it was to your liking and was informative enough. As always, humanity calls me to condemn all violence against human beings. Have a good day, and always remember, Russia will be free and great.